here. We don't have anybody to fully here.
Everybody's gonna get home quick
This is
tonight.
one tough meeting.
I know, this is a good one to have, though.
You ready? Okay. All right, well, I'm gonna sort of call the meeting to order. We don't have a quorum, so we can't do anything that we need to have a discussion or vote on, but we can, at least we have a lot of reports that we could go through tonight and get through that. And then hopefully Councilor Zelenka will show up here. He's usually about 20 minutes late because he carpools from Salem, so we'll hope for that. So with that, we'll quickly review the agenda. We'll have a public comments and then commissioner comments. I think the public comments are going to be kind of short. We won't look at the April or May minutes and notes. We will have our introduction of our new deputy chief, Jepson, and then hopefully we'll have Alan here because we can't really talk about the work plan, which I'm supposed to report to the council next Wednesday, but we need to have that approved by the commission, so we can't go. Then we'll get the chief's report. We'll do the internal affairs report and the 2008 hate and bias report. We may have to hold off on the election of our new leadership, the chair and the vice chair, and then we will have a community outreach update, and then we will talk about one of our commissioners that is leaving, aging out, as he puts it, of the system.
Eugene.
So with that, Jessica, are you going to want to speak? Okay, because we're going to get to you right now then. If you'd like to grab a blue slip and we'll sit you up.
Can I fill it out later?
Yeah. You can just fill that out after you're done.
You say right now?
Yes, if you wouldn't mind. I hate to do it just as you come in the door.
Yeah. Got caught up in a terrible traffic jam.
It's a little tough out there right now.
I couldn't see what the cause of it was.
So,
Sorry.
so you've done this before, you know the rules, 3 minutes. I'll let you know when there's 20 seconds left.
Okay.
So I'll turn it over to you.
Okay. My name is Majeska C. Screen, and I'm the founder director of a little nonprofit called A Community Together, or ACT. I want to bring to your attention, in case you haven't heard it yet, that there's a renewed conversation going on about asking the city of Eugene and the Lane County also to declare a housing and homelessness emergency. This has proven useful in some other cities to have some unusual or otherwise impossible ways to help deal with things. And Heather Salicki is involved in it, if some of you know her. She spoke to the county commissioners yesterday, and the Human Rights Commission Homelessness Work Group spoke about it yesterday and decided to ask the Human Rights Commission next Tuesday to discuss it and hopefully ask the city council to declare an emergency. And of course, don't know where all that's going to go. It's been several years, though, since Mayor Piercy declared a crisis, a homelessness crisis. Apparently, the governor told her we couldn't call it an emergency, but for some reason, Portland has been able to declare emergency. So anyway, I think since that time, several years ago, a whole lot more people in our community realize it really is a community. I mean, an emergency, and you see headlines about the West Coast all over the place about the emergency. So I just want to say that, you know what, we know that public safety is involved with this, and there's been, some of us would say, although efforts have been made to do better on it, there's an awful lot that goes on in silos and not enough integration of the issues between different departments and sectors of the community. And civic engagement is part of that. Civic journalism is part of that. Now we have the payroll tax and the expected referendum of that, and we know that's going to be a pretty challenging issue for, ongoing funding for the extra APD services and a little bit for homelessness. There will be, I believe, more effort now than ever before for transparency and accountability, including of, police funds and the funds that go to homelessness. And I'm going to be out of town, going to other parts of the country for part of the summer, and making connections to set up a part of our nonprofit that we hadn't yet, which is to get into an academic kind of area, which I'm not an academic person, but I guess there's useful things in academia, to set up an institute for applied peace and conflict resolution. And we know there's a conflict in our community around all this stuff, and some would even call it a war, a class war, or whatever, especially when you bring in the affordable housing issues along with the homelessness issues. And so I look forward to continuing to work with you folks and getting a chance to speak with Chief Skinner and you. What are you, Deputy?
Deputy Chief.
Yeah, glad to get to meet you tonight. And actually kind of entering a new phase probably in the fall. And so just wanted to give you all a heads up. Thanks.
Thanks, Jessica.
Thank you.
So since we now have a quorum, thank you for coming. So we'll officially call the meeting to order. And with that, we will move on to commissioners' comments. Alan, I won't make you start since you just walked in, but Silver, if you would.
Start over there.
And got you with a full.
It's an old waiter
Sorry
trick.
about that.
I don't have any comments.
Okay.
No comments.
Aaron?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay. Sean?
I have a couple comments. First, it's excellent to have you here.
Thank you.
Welcome to our new deputy chief. The second one is that something I encountered in my work life. I encountered a business owner who was thinking about hiring private security to address some of the issues in his neighborhood. So I'd like to use that story to really double down on how much we need more police officers. Nobody should have to feel like they have to turn to privatized security in order to feel safe and secure in their business and community. That's it.
Good. Thank you. Steve?
I'd like to share that Tuesday we had Civilian Review Board meeting. It was my last meeting, and we reviewed the Landros case, and it was pretty well attended. And I'll say, while the outcome was tragic, no doubt, it was clear that the officers were amazing while acting in a very dynamic and truly life-threatening situation in the backdrop of very real gun violence in our schools. They're highly trained, and that training really mitigated probably greater loss of life. They observed oddities such as backpack, knife, and other issues that were out of place that gave them more caution and awareness. With the children passing in the hallway to other classes and being really close to the exit, they chose to move the issue outdoors. And they responded, in an amazing way under great pressure, and I appreciate them very much. I want to give them a shout out for that. I also want to give a shout out to the body worn cameras, because it took a little while, which is a little disappointing, to get some of the information out to the public, and a void, or a void, is that right? A vacuum must be filled, right? Mm-hmm. And so there were different narratives almost immediately, and through the cameras, it's overwhelming, decisive on what happened, and there's truly one narrative, and that really represents a true shield against what would otherwise be a baseless claims, and it would be opposing narratives we'd still be dealing with today. So they were really paid off, and just can't thank the officers enough for how they responded and handled it. So like I say, tragic, but thankful too. So
Nothing.
Deputy Chief, you have any comments you'd like to make?
I'm just very happy to be here. Thank you for having me, and I think I'm going to have some time in a minute. Yeah.
No, I'll wait for my chief's comments.
Alan, any comments?
Well, I guess we're going to talk about a lot of things I want to comment on. We reappointed Sean and Terry to lifetime appointments to the police commission.
Think I'm gonna die that way?
You guys didn't know that?
No. Thank you.
Welcome on board. We also have 2 new people. And for those of you who don't remember, the process is the mayor gets the application and makes nominations, and the councilors affirm that. So we have 2 new people coming on board. Actually, I don't think anybody starts until July 1. So, and it was a really good meeting. We'll talk about more about the community safety initiative. And you should read my email about, and all the counselors' email about how stupid and awful we all are, and in terms of implementing that. So that's just par for the course. But welcome.
Thank you.
You only get 1 star. Oh, you have 2. Okay. Good.
I'm JV. He's first.
Yeah, I don't think so, but
I just hire people smarter than me.
yeah, and thank you, Steve, for saying that. There was a guy who came to the city council meeting and actually said something incorrect in the meeting, and then afterwards stuck around to the end of the meeting to apologize and say that he was sorry that he said that he was corrected, and that he was sorry for saying that. And I walked up to him and said, I've been a city councilor for 12 years, and I've never had anybody ever say that to me, including the 2 jerks that came to city council and said that the police had murdered in cold blood this unarmed man. And my first reaction was, oh, you guys were there? Of course they weren't. They were just reacting out of bias. And so thank you for saying that, because I think that's an important thing to say in public meetings.
Thank you. So I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. I know it's hard in these when the sun is shining and it's a beautiful day to show up here and at this meeting. Welcome, Deputy Chief Jepson. It's great to have you. And I also want to say I appreciate the councilors voting in the public safety funding going forward, and we hope that sticks. But I think that was a very important vote by the council. I'm happy to see that went to support the department and the other homeless and the community court and then the fire department. So thank you for that. With that, we will move on to the review and approve of April's minutes, and then we'll do May's notes after that. But let's look at the April minutes. Anybody have any comments, questions, suggestions? If not, I will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second. Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the minutes as presented, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Now on to the May's notes from our planning retreat. Any comments, questions, suggestions? If not, I will take a motion.
So moved.
Second.
And a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. All right, we're moving on. So I'll turn this over to the chief for the introduction of our new deputy chief.
Thank you, Bill. And I'll give her a chance to talk a little bit about what's kind of on her heart and mind and why she's hired. Hi, Joel. It's my pleasure to announce and introduce that we've got Stacy Jepson as our new deputy chief. You may or may not have known that I've had this master plan in place for a while, well, for the better part of a year now, to take a look at the needs of this organization and to build a senior staff that I firmly believe not only in structure but in personality that can lead us into the future. In an organization our size, it is unusual to not have a deputy chief that can help overlook the operations, as the chief of police has to, from time to time, be more externally focused and deal with some of the policy and vision that an agency this size needs, and let the deputy chief help run the operations of the organization. So Stacy and I have worked together in the past. I stole her from Hillsborough Police Department, which is a well-respected police department in the Portland metro area just west of Beaverton, and where she and I worked together and actually had an opportunity to watch her and her many talents in that organization. And as I stepped away from that organization, continued to watch her rise up through the ranks and make a lasting impression and lasting difference in that organization around levels of creativity and employee wellness, and just a very, very strong resolve to make sure that people were taken care of in this very difficult profession that we've undertook. She's probably one of the best police officers I've ever been around, so that helps. Instant credibility when you talk about somebody that can speak the language and understands the nuances of being on the road and dealing with the difficult issues in the public. And I'll let her talk a little bit about that. She's a Springfield native, so it's a little bit of coming home for her. But I'm just really, really pleased I was able to get her to come down. She's hit the ground running. She's moving a lot of people's cheese right now. She is doing a great job looking at the flow and and kind of the cause and effect relationship of our different operations to help us be a little bit more efficient. And I think she's going to be a great addition to that team. So with that, I'll let Stacy talk a little bit about herself, because she doesn't want me to tell all the stories.
I'm not sure what's more uncomfortable, him talking about me or me talking about me. Thank you for your generosity and all those statements. As he pointed out, that's where we met, and that was probably, a couple decades ago now. So I think a big part of why I'm here is because of him. And I think we all want to work for people that inspire us, and he does that for me, most certainly. So first and foremost, thank you. Second is, as he mentioned, I grew up here. I was born at Sacred Heart Hospital. I was raised in Springfield and graduated from Springfield High. I won't tell you what year. Stuck around for a little bit, played basketball at Lane Community College for a couple of years, and then migrated north and stayed there until now. So played basketball at Western Oregon, just to give you a little bit about that side of me, and then landed in law enforcement. Started in a little community called Sherwood, just outside the metro area. And then I was there for a couple years and wanted to be in a bigger agency, so I lateraled over to Hillsborough and stayed there for roughly 21 years. So I have about 24 years of law enforcement experience. And I've been very blessed in my time in this career to have served in a lot of different capacities. So I'll run through a few of those just so you know. Obviously a patrol officer, a field training officer. I worked on the bike team for a period of time, the pedal bike kind. And then promoted to sergeant. Let me back up. I also was a detective in our street crimes unit, which, the chief has just implemented that unit here. So that's super exciting, because I spent a great deal of my career in that unit, either as a detective. Eventually, I ran that unit as a sergeant for several years. Had a very unique opportunity to start up a precinct concept for transit police in the west side of the metro area. So I ran the TriMet West Precinct for roughly 3 years and got to supervise folks from 6 to 8 different agencies, which was very unique. And more uniquely, I reported to the Portland Police Bureau for that span of time. So my chain of command was the Portland Police Bureau. So I got to dip into their culture a little bit, see a little bit about them. From there, I went into gangs, supervised a gang task force for 5 years. Again, got to supervise a great deal of different officers from different agencies, worked with the FBI, and also for those 5 years, I reported to the Washington County Sheriff's Office. So I've been dropped into different policing cultures: Portland, Washington County, Hillsborough, Sherwood, now here. So I feel like that suited me well, getting here. And what I learned through all those experiences was that cops and people that serve are people that serve, no matter where they are. And they all have a similar heart. So, and I think that's kind of what you guys are here doing, is serving, so thank you for that. And obviously I moved through the ranks and was a lieutenant for a period of time, a commander, and now I'm here and very honored to be here. Obviously the community's changed a little bit since I left. That's not always a bad thing. So I've been pleased to get back here and stomp around a little bit in the area I grew up and see how things are. And obviously we're at a pretty exciting time, I think, and also a critical time, it sounds like. So I'm hopeful that what I have in my toolbox, so to speak, over the 24 years of my experience can help. And I will say this, that everybody that I've met here has just been incredibly generous and kind and welcoming. And I thought I would struggle a little bit more leaving there and coming here and kind of missing that, but I haven't at all. I'm excited to come to work every day, and I am really lucky to be here, so thank you for having me.
Thank you.
And now you're a star.
And now I'm a star. Just a junior star, but
Stacy will, she brings a great energy to the organization. She and her wife and her 3 kids, and me and my wife and my 2 kids, we all think, we're all a bunch of families. And one of the things I really value about that is that we understand the stresses of families in doing this job and understanding how family needs to be first. And so that's, you've got a chief and a deputy chief that are doing a tough job while raising a family, which I think connects well with a lot of our especially younger police officers that are trying to do that. And so I love the fact that we're living in that world, and experientially we can identify with a large part of our workforce, and I think that's important from a leadership perspective. And so it's kind of exciting to be on that journey together. So yeah.
could I add one more thing? Because he just glaringly pointed out a big piece of what I left out about myself. I am married. I have a wife of 10 years. She's a detective, and she still works at the Hillsborough Police Department.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
She works on the violent crimes team, and she specializes in child abuse. We have 3 small children, all boys, 7, 5, and 3.
Oh,
so
how
I
fun.
chose to have children much later in life than most, and so it is a journey, and a fun one, but an exhausting one. And I'm very, very blessed. They're all healthy and beautiful kids, and I married up, so to speak. So that's a big part of who I am, and thank you for very politely pointing that out. So
They all still up in Hillsborough?
Sherwood.
Or Sherwood, okay.
Mhm. Yeah. So they're definitely a good group. So
3 boys, good for you.
yeah. My 3.5-year-old right now is giving me a run for my parenting money. So
That's good.
Good thing.
yeah.
Anybody have any other questions? Go ahead.
So, Chief, what's the deputy chief going to be responsible for?
So Deputy Chief Jepson is going to have all of the sworn operations. She, in our org chart, we actually just kind of solidified a different flow to our org chart. So it is chief and deputy chief, and then the deputy chief as the 3 sworn captains that run patrol, investigations, and operational support, which will be the downtown team, SROs, the CSOs, crime prevention, and records division. Underneath the chief will be administrative services, which includes all of our finance and recruiting and all of the things that go with that, technology, and also have the 911 center and have the Office of Professional Standards, which Lieutenant San Miguel runs. Well, I'm not sure if Cindy runs it and you work for her, or which
Cindy
way.
runs it.
Cindy runs it, and Angie works for, we all work for Cindy, quite frankly. But Professional Standards reports directly to the chief's office, as does Media Relations and PIO. So we've kind of split those duties, and that's purposeful, just because keeping the trains running on time and the operations side is somebody that's here, embedded, understands that, and I can certainly do that, but it would be at the expense of being able to do the kind of community stuff and outreach that I think a chief in this organization needs to do, and especially in this community does. So those three captains are hers, and so she has done a great job already grabbing them and taking a look at the why we do what we do and should we be doing it different, and looking at deployment strategies and challenging people to look at things differently. It's one thing I've noticed about this organization is that no value statement on whether it was right, wrong, or indifferent, but the organization needs to start looking at how we do things differently. And if we land in the same space, at least we get to say we evaluated it through the 21st century lens of law enforcement and policing, and we can fall back on that. But in some cases, we find that there are ways that we can move this organization forward to look and feel a little bit differently that I think more aligns with our vision of what we think policing should be in Eugene. And so that's what we continue to do.
Small job.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Well, good. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to the Police Commission's work plan and annual report. So I didn't plan to go through this with everybody. We did it. We went through all the things we've done over the last 2 years at our planning session in May. And then Jeremy has added sort of our list of things that we're going to do over the next 2 years and how they were prioritized from our May meeting. And so if anybody has any questions or comments or feel like there needs to be a reorder of those, let's talk about it now, since the council has asked us to present this next Wednesday. So we'll need to vote on this if everybody's okay with the way the report looks.
Oh, that was great. Nice job.
Page 17, the list. So we kind of did a cutoff point, didn't we, where we said, and so is that reflected through this? Is it?
The cutoff, everything that was cut off went in the parking lot over here.
Oh, okay, I didn't see parking lot.
And the stuff that was combined, I eliminated from the list because you added them into others.
So it ended up being 15 things?
It ended up being 15 things, and in case there were any questions about that, I brought the original that I cobbled this together from, and so if you...
Incredibly well written.
So
Allegedly written.
So yeah, it turned out to be 15 things, which was rather convenient.
And yeah, maybe too many.
Maybe
too many.
Well, it is 2 years.
Yeah, it is 2 years.
This is actually very close to your previous, that was at 22 total.
Yeah.
And it had your first 10, your second 10, and then it had a parking lot with a couple. So this is actually really close to the same.
Okay. Yeah, I like the way this is laid out.
I don't know if this is an appropriate question, but on order number 6, it says presenter quarterly on these matters. Quarters come really fast for me. I don't know, I wonder if that's more frequent than, but maybe this is not the time to talk about it. Maybe we just bring it up and...
No, I mean, we could talk about that now if we feel like because that's sort of what we're going to present to council next Wednesday.
Okay, so
this is what we're going to do. So if we feel like quarterly maybe a little too often to do that, as we schedule the availability of the groups to come in and talk. But
my understanding is that the new budget also includes an equity oversight person. So we might want to leave that a little bit more open-ended to work with them specifically.
So,
Maybe we should say goal is to have presented quarterly.
We could, we could say, or we could say we at least have it like 3 to 4 times a year.
something,
That sort of
yeah,
gives us
something
a
to
little-
soften
Yeah.
that, or give us more choice about it.
So I'm glad it's not me who's gonna figure out how to do that every quarter.
So should we just change it that says that,
Regular presenter.
regular.
That would be fine, yeah.
Regular presents, or at least 2 to 4 times a year.
Something like that, yeah.
2 to 4 times a year.
So that way it gives us, so if it turns out that we can only do it, every 6 months, then,
4 times.
okay, so we'll make that change. Anything else?
Yeah, and Sean, good point, but that person doesn't start until another month, and they gotta get their
Yeah.
feet under them, so. they
Yeah,
don't
that's
even-
what I was saying, is give
Yeah,
them a
half
little
a
bit of
year before
flexibility
they
to
get
work with
going,
them.
really. Yeah.
Your first presentation on that's actually tonight. There you go.
Okay, we got one down.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
Yeah.
yeah, so there's other pieces that we can bring in that will at least soften that. Okay,
Yep.
anything else?
Chairman, is that the hate and bias report?
Okay. If there's no other comments, then look for a motion to accept as amended.
So moved.
Second?
Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say nay. We'll move forward.
Yeah.
Then we'll move on to the chief's report.
Thank you. I'll spend just a little bit of time and talk about some things that are happening within the organization and things that are happening throughout the community that might be of interest. I think I'd be remiss if I didn't lead with the vote of council that occurred on Monday night, and regardless of whether there is a strong opinion about whether there's a need or a strong opinion about the mechanism by which we get to fill that need, I'm very pleased with the message that came out of council about their support of this police department and this system. And I need to make sure that I emphasize and underline that while EPD is a big beneficiary of this, it is about a system. This isn't about more police officers out there policing specific and targeted groups. It's about an entire system that needs help, and so I do appreciate that. I would like to specifically call out Councilor Zelenka, because I thought there was a moment in there where there was a tremendous demonstration of leadership that while he stayed strongly convicted around his opinion of it being referred to voters, that once the council went a different direction, he decided to vote in favor of it. And I felt like that was a strong demonstration of leadership, so I appreciate that, and it was noticed by many people that I talked to, so thank you for that. So we are in a place where we're kind of in a wait and see perspective from this community, but the police department is not in a wait and see posture. We are moving forward. Very excited about what we can become when we grow up. As early as Tuesday morning, I had about a 3 or 4 hour planning session around the org chart and the potential addition of the positions, and trying to put a plan in place around the recruitment and the training of these brand new positions, and making sure that we build a foundation, as it was put to me, that I thought was a good illustration, building the foundation before we frame the house. And so we're working on that, and so we'll be full steam ahead on at least the logistics around how we get ready to expand capacity within the police department. So it's an exciting time for the system. It's an exciting time for Eugene. It's an exciting time for us to have an opportunity for the citizens of Eugene to experience a different level of service that maybe they've never experienced before, and to give them a chance to see what it could be like to live in a city that has a robust response to their needs. And that means every need, not only our life safety needs, but even the livability needs that sometimes are very emotional for people and plague people and make and profoundly impact them in their neighborhoods. So we're looking forward to that. Your police department is fully staffed right now. The 192 FTEs that we have in the general fund, and then the 10 additional FTEs that was in the allocation of the supplemental budget in December that council gave us is fully staffed at 202, plus overhired by 2 in preparation for retirements. So we can be proud of the fact that we have all of our positions filled. Where street crimes is doing great work. The second half of street crimes, which is another 4 officers, is targeted to go to that team on June 24th. So eventually fully built out, it's 2 sergeants and 8 officers that are doing work in communities around problem houses and dealing with street level crime that we need to deal with. And you'll see from time to time the media releases around the good work that they're doing. And so we're excited about that. The CSOs are hired, and they're continuing to answer calls for service, which is really good. So we're excited about that as well. Fast forward, the things that we're looking forward to is getting ready to prepare for National Night Out. That is happening the first Tuesday of August, which is the first time we're hosting a citywide party for the community and police to come together for National Night Out, which is a nationally celebrated day around community and crime-free community living. And we are having it hosted down at PK Park, and Fred Meyer is the title sponsor. They ponied up $5,000 to help sponsor that. PK Park has donated their space. The ball field's open, the bounce houses will be open, all the fun trucks and toys will be there, vendors, bicycles to raffle off, and free food for people. So we're gonna encourage the community to come and celebrate with us down at PK Park on August 6th. So I just put that on your radar screen for attendance if you want to come down and see what that's all about. First time we've ever done it here in Eugene, so we're hoping that it goes really well, much like last winter we did the first Shop with a Cop, and that was overwhelmingly successful. So we're excited about continuing to do those things. Lastly, you'll see on the table, a little table tent here. I'm going to be out at Putters on Monday doing my thing, the Chiefs Forum stuff, and meeting community members and having some cops out there and some cars out there and have some fun with family and kids and give them a chance to ask questions. Most recently, the one we did was at a Starbucks at Oakway, and it all started at Killerburger, actually, downtown, shortly after I arrived, and so we're doing this quarterly, trying to find ways to connect with our community, and so we're headed out that direction and going to do it at Putters, and so we'll have
You're not a golfer, are you?
I am a golfer,
Oh.
but it certainly doesn't look like it in that picture. So that's
Sorry.
That's our media relations way of trying to get creative.
You look like a miniature golfer.
I know. That's right.
It looks like a big giant coming
I
up the hill.
know. I know.
That's true. Up on the hill.
Yeah.
So that's
Little toy truck.
Little toy cars.
That'll be a fun event.
Otherwise,
And
it's a good picture.
No, I appreciate it. After that compliment I gave you, that's what I did. So we're looking forward to that. I enjoy those things. You guys are getting to know me well enough to know that those things are important, but they're also authentic for me to want to do that, and so I'm looking forward to that. So that's my update.
Good, thank you. Anybody have any questions of the chief?
Did you say August 6th?
August 6th should be
That's
the
a
first
Tuesday.
Tuesday in August.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Chief.
You bet.
So we will move on to the internal affairs report. I'll ask Lieutenant San Miguel to come up and.
I'm actually bringing the person who makes this report with me to take lead. So Cindy is our analyst for the internal affairs unit. She actually creates this report, so I'm going to let her take lead on it. According to Jeremy, all you have to do is hit the
That's right.
clicker.
That should work.
Good evening. So you received the full report in your packet, I believe.
Yes.
So for tonight, this PowerPoint is just going to walk us through some of the slides to kind of be an overview of the material that's in the report. Our office consists of our lieutenant, Angie San Miguel. We have currently one IA Sergeant, Jason Barrett, who you probably know. Myself and Rick Weber is a program coordinator in our office. The report includes statistics related to our informal internal affairs investigations, incident reviews, supervisor actions, which are a lower level of complaints, usually classified by the auditor as service complaints, policy complaints, or inquiries. We also have stats on our vehicle crashes and vehicle damage, vehicle pursuits, use of force is reviewed in this report. A quick overview of arrest data and how that compares to our use of force, commendations, and lessons learned. Which is, lessons learned is kind of the big thing about why we're doing what we do, is we do pull things from all these cases. Okay, so overview of IA stats. This is a chart showing the stats from not only 2018, but how they compare to the last previous years of 16 and 17. Pardon me. The formal IA investigations, there were 24 of those this year, 18 incident reviews, and 350 supervisor action cases, 422 commendations. And by the way, if anybody has any questions as we go, I would encourage you, if you want to, go ahead and ask as we're on the topic. Otherwise, I'll answer questions at the end as well.
Of the,
Yes.
of the internal of all of these, I guess, how many were, or particularly the investigations and incident reviews, how many were founded or?
We'll get to the statistics on that in a little bit here.
The one question I have is,
Yes.
how come people don't talk more about that we have more commendations than we ever have of complaints?
We should, we're doing it right now.
But I mean, I think that's something that I think somehow we need to think about how to get that out, that because everybody's always focuses on the bad, when really there was a lot of people that are calling saying somebody did something really good.
Right.
Yes.
Same reason you don't hear about all the 8-0 votes in council.
It's so true.
Okay, so out of those 24 formal allegations of misconduct that were classified by the auditor, by the way, the auditor classifies all of our complaints. And then he gives them a subclassification as well. So, and each complaint could have multiple aspects to it, but the auditor is going to give it one classification and one subclassification. So that's what this chart represents, is that 13 of those were classified as conduct, 3 were conformance to laws, 1 discrimination, 5 performance, and 2 use of force cases. And again, these are only talking about those 24 formal allegations. Sustained rates. So this shows you, again, comparison back 3 years worth, but in 2018, we had those 24 broke out that 18 were actually internally generated and 6 were citizen complaints. And out of those 18 that were internally generated, 14 of those were sustained. 1 of the citizen complaints were sustained.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because that was something in the report that I highlighted. So it says 75% of these were internally generated.
Yes.
So how does that, does that do the blue?
So sometimes a sergeant will enter something into blue team, a use of force or damaged property, and the sergeant or the lieutenant or the captain will think, that's not appropriate, or that's out of line, and it can be generated that way. It can also be generated if a sergeant or an officer witnesses another officer do something on the street that they don't think is appropriate and reports it up the chain.
Can I just have one last comment?
And body cameras too, when supervisors are reviewing body cameras of their officers, we're starting to see a trend of some of these being generated from the reviews of the body cameras.
I guess another point, I think these are things that are important, that are hidden in these reports, because I think, the general public is thinking that police never look at themselves, that it's always citizen complaint driven is where we really get these sort of internal investigations. I think somehow we need to unbury that because it was, yeah, because it's important that 75% of ours are coming from within the department saying, we felt something was wrong here, it needs to be investigated.
The important metric here is anytime you have an organization that number is 0 internally is when you have a problem.
Right.
It's a culture of protectionism, it's a culture of hiding behind kind of the blue curtain type thing. And I will tell you that I obviously, my fingerprints are on every single one of these, either at the adjudication or the discipline phase. And there's more than a handful here where you have supervisors that are looking at something completely different and just stumble across something, and instead of just letting it go, they're raising their hand and saying that's not right. And it also is happening in our comm center as we're reviewing 911 tapes for maybe public records, that if we come across things that are a customer service aspect of the way a telecommunicator talks to somebody, they're doing the same thing out at 911 and entering things into Blue Team to have it taken a look at. It's something that we should be proud of, the fact that we're willing to address behavior that way, for sure.
Steve, you have.
So along those lines, I like seeing the higher percentage of internally generated. I think that there's more confidence that will actually be heard and taken seriously and not retaliated against for complaint, and then which leads to better confidence in the system and overall a better police force. So I totally agree with all of that, and letting the community know that it's important, definitely.
Okay, I have Silver and then Alan.
Yeah, just percentage-wise too, it looks like you have a greater percentage of the internal being sustained than you do an external generated one. So I don't know, it's kind of unusual to me.
It's actually quite common. Generally, if an internal, whether it's a sergeant or an officer or other employee, is identifying behavior that may be problematic, they usually have a pretty good understanding that it's breaking a rule or it's against policy. So where a citizen might not have that full understanding of the policies that are that's what's being evaluated in the adjudication. I mean, can I add one other thing to this? I just wanted to make sure that everybody realized that on these allegations of misconduct, if any one allegation is adjudicated as sustained, the whole case gets this disposition as sustained. So we can have a case that has multiple employees with multiple allegations. Those are each adjudicated, but then if any of those are adjudicated as sustained, this case will get classified that way for purpose of this stat.
Alan, you had.
Are all of these brought through the police auditor's office?
Yes.
Yeah, and maybe Steve, you've got a long history with the CRB, but that's not exactly usual that the police auditor is the place where internal complaints land. We don't have that many police auditors in the country, but it's kind of a little bit of a testament to the work that Mark does and the trust that he has within the EPD to be able to bring those things to him.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's based in the original ordinance that allows for any employee, which includes the police officer, to file a complaint with the auditor's office. And clearly, not clearly, but yes, there's been great work with the auditor's office and EPD to build these relationships that require a lot of trust, because it's not like, oh, I'm trying to go aha and catch you, I'm trying to improve the system. Yeah. So it's all about the relationship, so for sure.
And I would add too that it really is a testament to the strong collaboration between the police department and the auditor's office. We have weekly IA technical meetings where we really sit in a room and kind of triage these things and talk about all the different angles, and quite honestly, there's some robust dialogue that goes on there, and we don't always agree because of the different perspectives. But the auditor's office has been great about taking the time to hear our perspective, and we take time to hear their perspective, and really feel good about when we have a classification come out that we kind of understand that's the direction we're going. And so that is a purposeful and ongoing relationship that we continue to foster. And so it's one that I think has bred tremendous success in just legitimizing this process and these statistics you see moving us forward. So
Being perceived as fair and unbiased.
yeah, for sure. And again, I mean, this is not a rubber stamp type of process. There have been times where the auditor and I have completely disagreed, and it's okay. I mean, and he and I have a relationship where we can agree to disagree. We understand which lanes we both swim in at the end of the day. And the same with the deputy auditor. Leah is a big part of that, and often work with her directly in Mark's absence, and it's been very, very productive. But don't ever want anybody to get the perception that it's kind of this hand in glove kind of, let's make sure that we're all getting along all the time, because trust me, these are tough issues that we're talking about. And I think both sides appreciate each other's side perspective on where we're coming from.
All right. So again, out of those 24 cases, this is a breakdown of the adjudications for those case dispositions. So we have one that was dismissed because the employee was no longer active at the time the investigation came in. 15 were sustained. Hard to see the colors, I'm sorry. One was dismissed through a grievance. One was adjudicated due to resignation, and 4 were within policy. And 2 were unfounded.
What's the difference between unfounded and grievance dismissed?
Unfounded means that after the investigation, there was not enough evidence, and when the preponderance of evidence is our burden of proof on this, 51%, but this was that the employee did not do the thing that they were alleged to have done. The grievance dismissed is a unique one. This is the first time we've had one be handled in this manner. It was a very unusual circumstance, but it was one that was opened, classified, investigated, adjudicated, but the chief ended up dismissing the case based upon a grievance that was filed by the union. It's the first time we've had that circumstance happen since I've been here, so it's highly unusual. Okay, so allegations by finding. So out of those 24 formal allegations, there were a total of 48 allegations that were individually adjudicated. And there were 27 that were sustained, 4 unfounded, 5 within policy, 6 insufficient evidence, and 6 that were not adjudicated due to resignation. This is just a slide that shows you by the subclass that the auditor assigns to each of these cases, how the allegations were. So there were 2 use of force, and they were both determined to be within policy. Out of the performance categories, you can see that we had 16 individual performance allegations that were sustained. That's kind of the front layer. 1 discrimination that was unfounded. The courtesy landed with 3 sustained, 1 insufficient evidence. And then the conduct cases, as you can see, there was kind of a variety of outcomes there.
Steve has.
I just would say I appreciate the granularity of the classifications, because it allows you to kind of track and look for patterns, and maybe if you're seeing something excessive, you can follow up and dig into a little bit further. So I appreciate that.
Incident reviews. So I want to give you a little bit of background about incident reviews, especially for folks that might be newer. This is a we were struggling a couple years ago to try to figure out how to classify some complaints. Mr. Gisner was oftentimes in a spot where he felt like he needed to do an allegation of misconduct due to the nature of the complaint, but didn't really feel like he had enough information to do that. So in 2016, we came up with the incident review classification, which is a preliminary investigation assigned to the IA sergeant. And the purpose of it is that they can do whatever preliminary investigative steps are necessary, short of interviewing the involved employee. So the involved employee is not noticed on these. And there's quite a bit of evidence, depending on the case, that could potentially be reviewed to give the auditor more information to understand what happened and make a final adjudication. So some of those have been reclassified to allegations of misconduct. And if that happened, they were going to be in the other stats. These were all cases that the incident review occurred and the sergeant consulted with the auditor and prepared a memo, and the auditor was fine with closing these out as incident reviews. It is, it's proven to be a very efficient way of getting to where we need to be. The department wants to know more information about these cases. The auditor has enough information to feel comfortable to classify and close out. We still have the documentation of it, but we're not having to, we're not going through the full formal allegation of misconduct and everything that goes with that, including stress on employees and the time for supervisors and managers to review the cases and so forth.
And the body-worn cameras are extremely helpful in this category. A lot of times Mark will get the complaint and he'll ask for the body-worn camera to be sent over, and he can make his classification right off of that.
Right.
He's even dismissed some after he's had a chance to watch the body-worn camera. So.
And that can sometimes happen even before the incident review. You can do those at intake.
Yeah.
Supervisor action. This is really, I think, the bread and butter of the auditor's office. I think they'd probably agree in terms of sheer volume. The cases, the complaints that are received through the auditor's office and classified, many of them are related to service complaints, policy complaints, and inquiries. These cases are not generally assigned to IA. They're almost always assigned to the employee's immediate supervisor. And we use Blue Team, by the way, our companion software, as a mechanism to assign those cases out to the field for investigation, and that's how we track where we're at with those. 38% were classified as inquiries, 52% as service complaints, and 10% as policy complaints. Any questions about supervisor actions? One other thing I think I would add with this is this year particularly, I think we all felt kind of a spike in the service level complaints. There was folks just really frustrated with either response times, that when they were reporting a crime, or just being disappointed that an officer wasn't going to be dispatched at all. We also had a fair number of complaints related to homelessness and prohibited camping. Again, just more service level complaints rather than the performance issues that they were feeling about from employees. More just expectations weren't being met.
Sean has one.
I remember when the police auditors gave their report, they also talked about additional outreach that they were doing to inform the community that they exist and that they are a place that takes those complaints. So I think that is a great sign of their success.
So here's just a snapshot of the look of the last 3 years on both the inquiries, policy complaints, and service complaints. Policy complaints have remained fairly steady, but it seems like the inquiries and the service complaints are rising this last year.
Go ahead.
What would an inquiry be? I don't know what to think of.
Well, an inquiry by our definition isn't even a complaint. It's just it's a question about
Okay.
police policy, services, things like that.
Okay.
But these are classified by the auditor, and he uses the inquiry, I think, because he's wanting to get more information too about what happened.
Okay, thank you.
So this just shows how, out of the service complaints, so not the policy complaints and inquiries, because they're not further broken down by type, but service complaints are. So this is how Mr. Gisner has subclassified service complaints. 60 of them were related to performance, 17 service level, 1% use of force, 3 other, 3 conduct, 15 courtesy, and 1 discrimination. So while these stats show that performance is the big chunk, anecdotally, I felt a lot were more service level complaints than performance complaints. I mean, the person might have said, I'm upset that the officer didn't show up, but it was really, a lot of them were more about being frustrated with the level of service we were able to provide.
You brought that up again, and I wanted to ask, when we talk about service, not calls that are not being responded to, how many of those are actual calls just about homeless issues?
I don't have the actual stat on that, but I do feel like we had quite a few complaints this year regarding camping, prohibited camping, and they were a mix. Some of those were complaints from the campers that were concerned about how they were treated by the police, but many of them were from business owners and citizens in the community that were frustrated that the police weren't addressing the prohibited camping issues in their neighborhood.
And I would tell you that, yes, there are moments that the core of the issue was specifically about prohibited camping, but prohibited camping was not, and many of those was not the central issue. It was the other behavior that was going on while the prohibited camping was occurring. The hypodermic needles, the drug use, the urination, defecation in public, the litter, that was a big part of that as well. Why is it you don't do anything about this? Clearly drug use and possession is illegal. Why are you not making those arrests, those types of things? So kind of all gets dumped in the same bucket of prohibited camping, but the actual act of prohibited camping is not criminal in nature. It's a violation. It can only be issued a citation, but a lot of the frustration was around some of the other things that it is somewhat criminal behavior that we didn't do anything about that or weren't doing anything about that.
I'm questioning how many of the calls that we're saying that are not being responded to. I had a personal issue where my vehicle was stolen and there wasn't a response to it. I was sent paperwork and then somebody came out and took a report. That made sense.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect them to catch my, go and find the person that stole my car. But I'm wondering how big of an issue this is actually generating those calls and how we're allocating those actual non-response calls towards, this is why we feel this need. Maybe it's a two-way street. I don't know. Maybe it's just we're circular, like we're thinking in a circular way.
Yeah, it's a big conversation about how we got to where we're at. with regards to our response times and the number of calls for service that we don't get to every day, or the amount of hours or days it takes for us to get there. What I can tell you is, when we sit and have our IAA technical meeting and kind of go over complaints and go over new complaints, it's not uncommon to have at least a couple of those in there that the major complaint is I called about my stolen vehicle and it took you 8 hours to get here.
Yeah.
And they don't know who to complain about. It's just in general. So I guess maybe those are on, the chief has his own complaint line here, where it's an organizational complaint more than it is an individual officer or employee complaint. But they happen a lot. And part of what we're trying to accomplish through expanding our resources is to be able to start picking those off so we actually get to those.
So, and I guess, I don't know, this doesn't really, I mean, I can't prove how much this goes on every day, but when I've sat at the 911 center on the sit-along, ride-along, whatever you want to call it.
Sit-along.
The screen isn't homeless calls. The screen that sits there that they said that, they're trying to send an officer to is not a homeless call. It's a burglary call that happened yesterday, and they're still waiting to get. At least that's what I saw. So, it isn't. The 30% of the calls they're missing aren't all directed towards downtown. They're across the city wide, and it's just not enough officers on the north side or on the west side to get to those. Would be just from what I've seen when I've sat in there. Okay.
Vehicle crashes and vehicle damage. So, just want to remind folks that these numbers don't represent pure crashes. These numbers represent also any vehicle damage by any cause to our vehicles, fleet vehicles. So this could be crashes, it could be damage caused by citizens. Really, we're tracking damage as well. This kind of shows specific, yes, sir.
Go ahead.
So I was curious, I know, like the miles driven per year, it's like over 1.5 million miles, a lot of miles. And these are incidents I'm wondering, like, for a city this size or the size police force, how do we fare in relation to other jurisdictions? Probably pretty good, I'd imagine, but.
I would imagine pretty good. I haven't checked that out, but.
I can tell you based on my experience that the norm for police departments until I got here, and it was something we worked on in Richland, is that the dinging of a patrol car was the cost of doing business and never got looked at. Mm-hmm. And we started to change that trajectory in my former agency because, well, for a variety of reasons. And I will tell you that the threshold and the robust nature of self-reporting and internal reporting for this is very, very high.
Okay.
There's a lot of...
Might be over-report is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, it's anytime we damage something, we should report it. But in general, I like our chances compared to other agencies our size with regards to how much we take a look at this. And we'll have this same conversation with the hate and bias report. Right. We lead the way with regards to how much we report. And there's a lot of jurisdictions that I think under-report. And this is kind of the same type of deal.
So this slide just shows, for the patrol sworn, we have 19 involving sworn, but 9 of those were not at fault. So, pardon me, 19 at fault, 9 not at fault. Investigations, 3 and 3, and then we did have 6 incidents involving Cahoots vehicles, 2 of which were not at fault. Cahoots vehicles are our vehicles, so we do track those. This is the stat that Steve was talking about earlier, showing just how many miles we're driving. up quite a bit.
I had a question.
Oh, sure.
What's a code 3 response?
Emergency lights and siren.
Okay.
So, and I just, on one of your charts, which I really like this chart, but it's kind of funny, that we were more likely to hit something, a fixed object in front of us than we were behind us.
We
So
hit
it's good to see that at least they're knowing what they're hitting.
Yeah.
Not just running into the back of it. Good. Happened to be my favorite statistic of all the cars. I was hoping Chris and Kyle were here when I got this.
Yeah.
Which is unusual, because usually backing accidents is what
Yeah.
happens.
Well, that's what you would think, but at least they got to see that fixed
Do
object.
y'all have backup cams?
Yeah, we do. Every
Yeah.
car does, yeah. Yeah. So,
Is it true that the SUVs are a little harder to,
They are, it's,
Have some
you
good
can't,
visibility.
when you have the cage back there and the box and the rifle rack and all that stuff, it's really hard to see out the back of those.
but the new PIUs have the backup cam
Yeah.
that shows up in the, and in some case that's good, and in some case, when you start over relying on that,
Yeah.
you make other mistakes.
You hit the thing that's
You s-
parked right
Yeah,
next to
you
you.
get used to thinking that that's the gospel when you're
Yeah.
doing your maneuvering, to only find out that just looking over your shoulder would have been helpful. And I've never crashed a patrol car in my 28 years, just by the way.
Oh, now it's gonna happen.
Well, technically, I don't drive a patrol car anymore, so it doesn't.
That's how you get cheated.
That's how I get out of that.
we had 4 pursuits last year, which, yeah. 2 stolen vehicle, 1 agency assist, and 1 suspicion of criminal behavior. So you can see how it compared to the last couple of years, trending downward.
This is something to be really celebrated, by the way. I mean, you think about driving a 3,500-pound projectile at 80 and 90 miles an hour, and the danger that poses to the community. We're trying to be very judicious about when we do that, so I'm pleased with those statistics.
And it's a matter of policy.
Yeah, a matter of policy.
Purpose.
Yeah, it's we're very, if we're gonna chase somebody, it needs to be for the right reasons. Now, having said that, in some of these complaints, there have been some out-of-policy pursuits that we address as well. Because we get a little over-ambitious, and in fairness, there are things that happen in a moment, second, where you're still trying to figure out what's going on before you know what you have, that we need to extend a little bit of grace to kind of process the information before you either shut something down or ramp something up. But I'm very pleased with
Me too.
with the way we're going with pursuits.
Yep.
Okay, use of force incidents. As you probably know, we track all of our reportable use of force through Blue Team. Sergeants put them in, and they are they're reviewed by Internal Affairs, Chain of Command, and the Auditor's Office. They look at all these use of force reports in Blue Team. We had 201 last year. Active resistance. These 3 consistently are the primary reasons that are listed by the sergeants when they're filling out these reports. Attempt to flee, ominous resistance. 90% of the incidents resulted in arrest, and the average age of the offender was 37.
So I know I've asked every year, so, and so my last day, I'm gonna ask again. So I still would like to see us track, like, resisting arrest and interference, because I think these get piled on a lot, and be curious to know, how do these get resolved? Do they get dismissed? We don't have, I mean, those are ones that I've seen over the years, and lots of complaints from people in the community that get added to other things, like interfering, resisting. So I don't see any tracking here. Do we have any thoughts about tracking any of that?
I did look one year. I went back and looked at the resisting arrest and interfering.
Yeah.
And so I had to pull up all the police reports, and then I had to go to the different courts and figure it out. And there wasn't a clear, I wasn't able to get any great stats, any revealing stats, but I only looked at 1 year. So
So like here, it says they're the most common charges. Is it in the active, or where is it classified in here?
The charges,
Well, where it says common charges,
Yes.
you know, disorderly, interfering, resisting, is it?
those are the.
I don't know where we track that. It's not in the reasons for use of force, or is it? Is it in active resistance, or is it somewhere in one of these other categories?
There is a charges category. I don't have the full report. Do you have the full report?
Yeah, it is.
All right.
I didn't see
Oh, I
it.
guess I didn't put that chart in there
Okay,
this
yeah, I
time,
didn't
I'm
see it.
sorry.
But you do talk about it right in the top paragraph under
Yeah.
reasons for use of force, where 46% of the incidents attempted to flee was reported at 24%, ominous resistance at 12% of them.
But you bring a good point. We can definitely take a look at that if people are interested in getting more information about what happens.
It's an interesting nuance with those two charges, because it really is the chicken and the egg conversation. Was the use of force, generally speaking, the use of force occurs, and then at least a resisting is a result of the response to the force we have to use. So as opposed to resisting and then we use force. I mean, it really is kind of an interesting nuance. If you think about an officer trying to make an arrest for on a burglary suspect, and then we're taking them down with some level of force, that's the use of force, and then somebody resists that force, then that charge comes in after the fact. And so it's almost like it can be its own standalone charge, but there's oftentimes it's a charge that is accompanied by some other issue that we're there dealing with. And so it's kind of a tough one you're right, Steve, it's kind of embedded in there. It's not like it's a standalone type of thing. And so I'm not a big fan of the interfering charge, quite honestly. I mean, there is some applications for it. Interfering for me feels more like a catch-all when we're looking for something. And so, Angie and I have had this conversation. We are very, very careful about looking at interfering and making sure that those elements are there for the true spirit of what interfering was meant to be on the books versus the way we apply it.
I've seen it applied for asking questions, and it's like I don't want to quite go to command and control, but like I'm asking
I don't
questions.
disagree. It is often referred to as the contempt of cop charge.
Yes.
And I'll just call that. I just own it as a law enforcement professional. From time to time, we as emotional creatures have a tendency to make really poor decisions when somebody is not complying with what we want to do, and sometimes this is the charge that ends up there. Now, having said that, there are times where it fits squarely within the four corners of what we should be charging, but there are some times it doesn't.
Yeah.
So we hold people accountable when that's the case.
So I had a quick question, I'm also aware of our time. What's classified as ominous resistance?
Ominous is more, say I'm squaring off to you and making a verbal threat, so I'm not physically resisting you, but I'm, squaring off, purporting that I'm gonna resist.
So a great example would be is oftentimes when officers are out there, for instance, somebody that has a warrant or somebody that we have a probable cause arrest for, we would ask them for compliance to either turn around, put your hands behind your back, put your hands against the car, and what happens is they'll square off, clench fists, and say, the only way you're taking me to jail is if it's a fight. And then if we have to go hands-on to actually take them into custody, that's the ominous resistance that we're talking about. And then if we have to actually fight, there might be a resistance charge that goes on top of that. And but we oftentimes, more times than not, unless it's a dangerous subject that we have to come into really quick and take immediate physical control of, there is an opportunity for people to comply and to do the things and put themselves in positions that make it safe for us to take them into custody and safe for them to be taken into custody. And the ones that say, no, not happening is kind of you see some of the ominous body language from them.
I would imagine that is also where the next page of the tasers comes in. The display, the verbal is, if they're ominous and you threaten and they stop, it would never escalate.
It's a tremendous deterrent to actually having to go hands-on with somebody or actually use it. It's much like a canine is often used. It's uncanny how a suspect will be much more compliant when the dog's barking in the back of the car, type of thing. That type of strategy, just to make sure that everybody's safe. We'd like to be able to take everybody into custody without having anybody get hurt, and so that's part of that.
Do you keep track of where and when these use of force incidents happen? Like, one of the things I've heard many times from police officers is the Saturday home football games, and the 37-year-old white men.
It is tracked in the system, the times and locations. It's nothing, we didn't put it in the report, but it's trackable, yeah.
Is that anecdote accurate?
I would say, anecdotally, much like our deployment strategies for the number of officers that need to be on to handle the call volume, it's time of day, day of week. I think you would find it's time of day of week, maybe event-centric spikes, for sure. Our weekend nights downtown have a lot of activity, for instance. Not necessarily our Saturday game days, but if the Ducks win a big one, that night can be very active for us, those types of things. So I would say anecdotally, there's probably some pretty consistent trends that we look at.
Okay, injuries. Officers were injured 31 times last year. Often they listed more than one injury. The most common was abrasions, but in 4 of those cases, officers sustained injuries that resulted in workers' compensation claims that resulted in, significant amounts. So, and as to the offenders, the stat that's showing that 19% were injured were taken to the hospital. Mr. Gisner made a good point the other day and highlighted that not all of those that are taken to the hospital, this stat is put in by the sergeants that fill out the blue team, and it's not really diving deep into why were they taken to the hospital. Was it an injury that they sustained before police even responded to the scene? Was it an injury that actually was a result of the use of force? Was it a self-inflicted injury? Was it...
Sometimes they swallow their drugs
Narcan.
Before they get arrested, and then you have to take them to the hospital.
Or a police mental hold. I mean, there's all sorts of reasons that an offender could be taken to the hospital. And at this point, our stats don't dive down into that. I have reached out to the vendor to see if we can get a little bit more data points on that we can collect through the database, rather than, we could hand count them, of course, but I think that is a good point. This kind of misrepresents how many that were actually and they weren't necessarily hospitalized. Maybe they were just taken for evaluation and then cleared and taken to jail. Taser deployment. Taser deployment decreased by 17 this year, but the effectiveness decreased to 51% from 54. Not a huge amount, really. 29 were deemed effective, 17 were noted to be ineffective, and 5 were noted to have limited effectiveness.
And when did we stop reporting on taser display? That probably affects the stat, correct?
Yes. Unfortunately, we don't have a full year of data on the taser display. That was November, I think, of last year. We stopped having to, that stopped being a reportable use of force. So before then, we were tracking not only taser displays, but we were also tracking if officers just, without displaying the taser, verbally warned the offender, and without even displaying it, that stopped folks 8 times. I mean, that was pretty impressive, I thought. So this is not a full, complete year of statistical data there.
Steve had it.
Can I confirm you said that we no longer track taser displays? Is that what you said?
That policy changed, so it no longer has to be entered into Blue Team if all they do is
Okay.
display it or threaten the use of it.
Okay, well,
Whereas we tracked that for years and
Yeah.
years.
Well, a couple thoughts. One, I'm surprised at the ineffectiveness of a taser versus the effectiveness of a display taser,
kidding.
which is great. It's a great tool when you can threaten or display.
Yeah.
But knowing how this community has concerns over tasers, I think it's actually a good thing to track the displays, because that's a story, a message you can tell the community, like, look, it's an effective tool even if we're not using it. So I don't know why we necessarily would stop, but I think it's a good thing to track. But
I think the primary reason was prioritizing the work of the sergeants, because
Yeah.
every time someone, displayed a taser, then the sergeant would have to go to the scene and do a Blue Team, and it's just a time thing, I think, for them.
I would strip the bureaucracy and
Yeah.
simplify it so that it doesn't require a sergeant. If we're not tracking it, then it seems like patrol could just do something themselves. But it's a good stat to track, I think, for community purposes, but.
Well, it came up when we redid the taser policy, and I think Sergeant Williams' comment is that the number of times that people threaten or display it is a large number. And so the officers to have to go through what Lieutenant Sam Miguel was saying is a lot of work for, yeah. They used it, they definitely used it, they just, so. Alan, you had a comment?
Yeah, I was going to comment on this thing, the effectiveness of just displaying it. It's kind of stunning. But the other one that caught my eye was of the 17, 11 were listed as having no apparent effect, meaning they tased the person and nothing. And
that can happen
What does that
if they
mean?
have really heavy clothing on, and one of the probes doesn't go all the way through the clothing, or you're too close or too far, and the spread of the probes, if they're too close, it doesn't have much effect if one misses. So it's a lot of it's clothing related.
It's nothing to do with a super erase.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, we run into somebody that's under the influence of something that won't have an effect, but especially in Oregon in the winter, tasers aren't overly effective when you've got, 6 layers of clothes on.
Yeah, right, that makes sense. Okay, thanks.
It's summer now, so.
Yeah. You can have a seasonal category when it's more
Adjusted for seasonal changes.
But the good news is the person that you're gaining compliance from doesn't know that. And so when you say, hey, let's not go down this taser route, they usually are like, yeah, I don't want to go down the taser route.
Just an overview of some stats related to canine use of force. This year we only had 3 incidents. One of those incidents involved 2 deployments. Also, all 4 of those were deemed within policy. Any questions on canines?
What does that mean? That means they release the dog and say, go get him?
No, that means the dog actually
Bit.
bit somebody and caused physical injury. The dogs have been deployed, they're deployed a
Way more
lot.
than that.
But these are just the ones where they actually bit somebody.
Going back, it looked like so dogs bit somebody for passive resistance.
The reason it was used was listed as passive resistant use.
So for instance, from time, not knowing the specific instance here, but from time to time, we have a suspect that we need to take into custody that's in a small confined space. And it makes absolutely no sense to put a human life in harm's way to go in and get that person, that a dog would go in and incentivize that person to come out. And I don't know if that is this particular issue, but I've seen that be effective. The other thing that could happen from time to time is you have a burglary suspect that's hiding in a house, and we're doing building searches and the dog finds. Now, they're supposed to find, watch, and let us do that, but every once in a while, you know, he's a dog, right? I mean, so it could be something like that, Sean, with regards to the passive part of it.
I think in this particular case in the report, this one involved a theft suspect with a confirmed warrant who'd fled from police on foot. The canine tracked and located a suspect hiding in a darkened area between a fence and some thick bushes. The canine grabbed a hold of the suspect's shirt, leaving a red mark. No bite occurred. So they've still felt that they should report it as a reportable use of force. So I believe that's the one that was.
How many canine units are there?
Do we have 3 dogs now?
We
Remind
have
me.
4 positions and a sergeant position, but I think we currently have 3
3 dogs.
dogs. And we have 1 on the way, I believe.
Where do they live? They live here?
They live with the officers.
They live with
Officers
the
at home.
officers.
They take 'em home.
They take 'em
Handlers.
home.
They care for them at home.
You can do a canine presentation. Sorry.
Yeah. Yeah, we should, actually.
Show and tell.
So this is a chart just showing the 6 most common force types depicted. So it's not all the different forces that are used, but it's the 6 most common and shows how they compare to each other. So yeah, the taser display, you can see that has, that's a high use force that, or non-force, I guess. Any questions on this one? How are we doing on time? Okay.
You're over.
Over?
You're way over.
Well, speed it up. Arrest data. This just shows how we had 9,711 arrests last year, down a little from the previous year. And use of force incidents compared to the total arrests, comparing a couple years back.
A custody arrest is when you take them to
When
the
you take
police
'em in-
station.
It's just when you take them into physical custody, putting them in handcuffs, whether you take them to headquarters or to the jail, or to the hospital, or wherever.
So what's an arrest then? Another 3,700.
I'm sorry, what?
So those are custody arrests versus arrests is a subset. There were a total of
What?
9,700 arrests, 6,000
Right.
custody arrests.
Yeah, the custody arrest would,
Custody arrest would be physically take custody of you. Issuing you a citation, a criminal citation is a form of arrest. So we could actually arrest you for something without actually physically taking you into custody. So that happens quite a bit, where especially with only 25 beds at the jail, there's no sense taking somebody to custody and driving them down to the jail when you could cite them in lieu of custody arrest. And so, but it's still considered an arrest.
so this just shows a monthly average of our use of force complaints and commendations for the last 3 years. So commendations have gone up a little, complaints have gone up to an average of 33 a month. Use of force has gone down to 17 average a month. Commendations? Or did you have a question?
I have just a slight thing. In the future, can we add some sort of, because in black and white,
Oh,
it just all looks the same, some sort of pattern to the bars?
Just have to use a color printer.
I figured you had a color.
We're looking online.
That's a lot of expense for
Yeah.
the city though.
Well, they're both being very environmentally sensitive. At least yours are double-sided.
Yeah, see, I'm doing it for the world.
He has HP stock.
That's true.
Commendations by source. We track both our internally generated commendations as well as our citizen-generated commendations. And you'll see that 46% of those were internally generated. Part of that number is in May every year, we have an award ceremony. There's quite a big process where employees are nominated for extraordinary work that has happened during the previous year. And all of those, after they've been processed and through the awards, they also get entered into our database so that they're formally tracked in our database and routed over to HR for their employees' personnel files. So part of that number represents the awards that have been issued to employees over the course of the year. And these themes have remained consistent for the last at least probably 5 or 6 years. Employees are commended for being tactful, compassionate, caring, and patient, efficient, professional, and thorough in their investigations, helpful, engaging, and informative. And more recently, in the last couple of years, we've received some positive feedback about the extra efforts that are happening in the parks and downtown, and specifically related to the community outreach response team court. Lessons learned. Driving, it does continue to be a common theme. People call and care. They care about officers driving. They call us about that. So we remind them that, to model safe and courteous driving, and to follow the rules of the road, and portray the image of a responsible driver to community members. Performance could be things that related to checking email and voicemail promptly, general customer service, de-escalation techniques, information gathering, and managing the public perception again. Importance of serving the public and the perception they give while responding to calls for service, and offering explanations of actions and decisions. I can't say enough about that. It really goes a long way for folks to just have the officer or the employee take a few minutes to explain what they're doing if it's safe to do so.
I agree with you 100%. I think communication is the largest percentage of why things go south. So taking that moment to maybe answer a question you don't really want to answer, recognizing you can't always in every situation, but I think that can be part of de-escalation before something turns into an event by just simply having a conversation. So agree 100%.
Training. We continue our emergency vehicle operation training, pursuit EVOC training with pursuits, enforceable stops, intervention techniques like pits and boxing in, defensive tactics. Again, reinforcement of de-escalation techniques. That has been a theme for the last few years of getting that de-escalation woven into really just about any of the training. Policies and practices. This group is probably the most familiar with this of anyone. This is kind of a highlight of some of the policies that have been worked on this last year. off-duty intervention and enforcement, Bay Car program, code of conduct got finalized, department firearms, taser, vehicle pursuits, again, de-escalation, armed barricaded subjects, and unmanned aerial systems was a pilot project, as well as the Guardian trailer system, another pilot project.
It's a Bay Car program.
Bay Car program.
It
Big
is,
bikes, too.
it's a car that we have that we park and people steal. And
It's
it has a
yours.
tracking system.
Yeah, you may be part of
It's your butt.
it.
It has
No.
a tracking system in it, so if it goes operational, we can track it and make arrests.
Oh.
Kind of like the bike
I thought it was
program.
like the police car sitting on the side of the road where they're speeding.
No, that's the decoy car.
Decoy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Or fake.
Okay.
The
Yeah,
cool thing
our
about the Bay
volunteers
cars,
run
we can
that
actually
program.
shut it down remotely.
That's
So we don't
awesome.
get,
That's cool.
so we don't get into a pursuit.
Yeah.
So we just get set up and then shut it down.
But it's still a car.
Anybody have any other questions for the group?
Nice job.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
That was great.
Good job, Cindy.
Okay.
Another
Another presentation. So next up, we have Fabio Andrade. Did I say your name right?
Fabio Andrade.
Andrade?
Yes.
To go over the 2018 advisory report. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, and I'm sorry I'll have to go through another set of statistics. So we talked about the Human Hate and Bias Report, the 2018 edition, which was prepared by the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement Office in partnership with EPG. This is a chart that helps us understand how this report is made. It has all the layers that we have in our system to support victims of hate crimes and bias incidents in Eugene. We can see that we have 3 different stages. One first stage is the reporting. That can be done by individuals and organizations, and also by Eugene Police. So individuals can report non-criminal incidents to HRNI, or they can report criminal incidents to Eugene Police. And those can be either dealt by police or referred to us if it's a non-criminal incident, and victims need some sort of assistance. From the information police collects, and the information we have in our own system, MMS, we prepare the annual report. And this is the report that you all have copied in your meeting packet, and we released last month, and it gets a lot of attention. And mostly because not many cities have such a system. So we continue getting many calls from different jurisdictions, from media outlets, trying to understand how we do this. And we know our system is not perfect, but we keep getting lots of requests for to share our experience with other jurisdictions. As you can see in the chart, what we do with that information is mostly referrals. Some referrals to City of Eugene departments and programs. Some cases go to the judiciary system, either at the state level. Some information just report to the FBI. It's a voluntary reporting. Last year, I think Eugene got a lot of attention when half of the hate crimes in Oregon was reported to be from Eugene. And that's not because we have more hateful group of people here, but because it was one of the few cities that were reporting such incidents. And that helped us have a better picture of what is going on in our community, although we know only a small percentage of the cases are reported. So the data we will go through now is just what people decided to report, or some information that was reported directly by police officers.
I had one question before we go next. With the University of Oregon and incidents that occur on campus, is that handled by them? Or if it's criminal, does it still get to EPD, or is that university police? Or
I think Chief would be the best to
So, if an incident happens on campus, then UOPD will handle that. I think there is a mechanism where UOPD keeps their own statistics on hate and bias incidents and crimes. What I don't know if it's folded into our overall statistics we report out. They're a separate ORI, which means they're a separate police entity, so they're required to report statistics. And so now that I say that out loud, my guess is that for purposes of reporting out, they're not folded into the EPD stats. But I don't know for purposes of this report if we're looking at the U of O stats and the EPD stats and the City of Eugene stats and they're folded in. I don't know that.
This report does include U of O.
It does?
It doesn't.
Okay, it doesn't.
We tried to get more information from them. It wasn't made available. They did publish a report for last year, and they had one single case.
Yeah, it might be on the report.
Yeah.
Well, the city of Portland, I think last year had 19 cases.
19?
Wow.
One good news maybe is that the bill that is in the Oregon legislature was just approved by the Senate today unanimously. So now it's going to the House. If approved, all jurisdictions will have to report starting next year.
And the good news is we're ahead of the curve here.
Yeah.
And we are getting questions from groups in Portland on how we do this, because if it becomes something that the entire state has to do, we'll probably get a lot of calls for information and to share how we do it here. So here's some of the statistics we have in the report. This is a list of the crimes, and you can see over the years how it has changed. We have a large number of cases in 2017, and last year the cases are pretty much the same we have had in recent history, so 40-something cases. There is a suggestion that the number of cases might actually be going down. We don't know yet, we are just halfway through the year, but if you compare on a 6-month base, yes, we are registering less cases in 2019 than we did in 2018, so the trend is declining. Here's just a chart with the crime categories, and you can see that vandalism, assault, and intimidation are the most frequent. Most vandalism are hate graffitis. And if you were following the news, we just had several cases yesterday that were reported to EPG or reported to us, and that's common. If it's hate graffiti associated with other messages, then we classify in different ways. Most of the ones we have in the report are related to just swastikas, so we classify as anti-Jewish. This is just a list of the cases by protected class. So as in recent years, race continues to be the dominant motivation for all hate crimes and incidents. And those in religion, they were all graffiti. This is just a comparison over the years, how the number of cases change based on the protected class status. You can see that race is constantly the most predominant one, religion and sexual orientation are the second.
What is association?
If you belong to a union or political party or belonging to the city.
Okay.
So we had some case where people were, there was some hate message against park staff. Here you can see a list by the communities, and as in has been the situation all of these years since we have been reporting that African Americans are the most affected community, and especially when we talk about violent crimes. Last year there was a considerably large number of cases involving sexual orientation. So if we combine males and females, we might have that group being the most affected group. Although the numbers were lower in comparison to 2017, they would become like the primary target. This one is a heat map, just showing you where the cases are occurring, and you can see that the central neighborhoods are the ones that concentrate most of the cases. Here is a chart with the non-criminal incidents. Again, same trend as in the criminal ones. We had a larger number of cases in 2017 and a decline in 2018. This one is something new that we add to the report this year when we are reporting the number of cases by primary and also by secondary protected classes. And that's because in the system we have at HRNI, we track all of them, so we can make this type of tables available. And we can see that in the primary reason for someone being targeted in a hate and bias incident is race, 9 cases. But when you check on the second table, you can see that the number jumps a lot, and that's because some of the other protected class might also be related to race. And then we keep seeing that there is a need for us to work more in giving community education and preparing our staff and community organizations to deal with race issues. In fact, the city just joined a group called Government Alliance on Racial Equity, and several staff from many departments are participating in training to help us address this situation. This is a table with information on the groups mostly affected in the non-criminal incidents. Here we have an inversion when you talk about race. When you think about the criminal case, blacks and African Americans are the main group. When you think about the non-criminal incidents, we have Latinos, Hispanics, and LGBTQ community members as the primary targets. So there's a clear difference, and this was the same situation last year. So we have threats, intimidation, and messaging. We have Latinos and LGBTQ members being targeted mostly, more frequently. This one just shows the trend over the years by protected class. You can see some new status there: housing, source of income, and familial status. So those did not appear in previous years. It is sometimes difficult to categorize that someone is being a victim of hate crime based on source of income and familial status. We had one case in the criminal section that was related to housing. And again, this is mostly on self-report. So the victim who is contacting us is telling us that that's how they felt. The non-criminal case were not investigated, so we cannot prove if that was actually the case. After the release of this report, we started looking ahead on what our office is trying to do to address the situation and to increase community awareness. So one of our actions is a new training program that's going to be offered to, hopefully, to all City of Eugene staff. We are designing it right now and expect it to be available in the fall. There is a language access initiative trying to translate city resources to mostly Spanish, so it's a way to connect with certain groups in our community. We hope to increase the number of community events in which we talk about hate and bias response, prevention and response. One of these opportunities is a training that we developed last year and is available to any community organization that wants to know how to identify, how to report, and how to respond to a hate crime happening in their communities. And we're also preparing a lessons learned report. So with that, I'll answer some questions if you have about this report.
I have one question. On your map of the city, where you show kind of, it's on page 65, the heat map of where these were reported, how does that coincide with like the crime map?
Very consistent.
Overlaid.
Oh,
So where we're having a lot of crime, we're also where we're having a lot of this.
Very consistent.
Joe?
Not necessarily a question, just a comment, just for folks here. You know, one thing that we have been discussing over the Human Rights Commission is that while these numbers are going down, and you know, historically we have seen an uptick in the amount of folks that are reporting to the HR&I, we're also well aware that there is a lot of underreporting happening, not just here in our city, but in Springfield and across the state. So, you know, one thing the Human Rights Commission has been chatting about, and I'd also love for folks here at the Police Commission to begin to think about is, you know, how can we, one, you know, make sure that we continue to push the system out, but also make sure that the groups that have been most effective continue to hear about and understand and are able to access the system. Because, you know, I personally I know folks that have experienced hate and bias activity in Eugene, and me, right, as chair of the Human Rights Commission, asking them to report, even I have a tough time sometimes getting folks to feel comfortable reporting. So just wanted to put that as a side note for folks.
Yeah.
And it makes me think of, and I guess maybe this is just being a little optimistic, would be that maybe, you know, with some of that we have been really good at trying to get people to report, and we've been tracking this, that maybe that could be reason why some of this is coming down, because it is more evident that we're looking at this now and making people more aware that these things are happening within our community, where in some of these other communities, which I think Portland's example, when they say they had 19, you know, it's you know, that, you know, that's not true.
Right.
And so maybe, maybe, you know, maybe that's just being more optimistic, that maybe with our enhanced reporting, we've actually got people to think about, you know, this isn't the community that's acceptable in. So.
Well, I appreciate your optimism, Bill. If you look at the numbers, 18 just came back down to this historical numbers we had in 16, or prior to 16. I think that it's not lost on me that the time in which we had some leadership changes in the national level, that it felt like we had more incidents happen as being on the screen, and that's not meaning to politicize this at all, but I look at those trends. So, but I would agree that I think, much like many of our crimes, whether it's hate and bias crime or incidents or domestic violence or, you know, any other victimization, I think they're horribly underreported. And so I appreciate your comments, Joel. We'll continue to be mindful and purposeful about trying to build trust and confidence in people that feel at least comfortable letting us know what's going on, even though maybe there's nothing we can do about it or there's no actionable items. But the message I tell people, whether it's hate and bias crime or crime in general, is we're better informed if we can have the data points so that the data can inform us on how we should respond. And so we just keep pushing that the best we can.
And I will quickly just say that, you know, we have made significant strides, and we should be very proud to have this system. There's nothing like it in the entire nation. And, you know, Chief Skinner, with your leadership, I know you've taken some strides as well to try to get better connected with some of the communities that have been victimized, right? We just had that community safety forum on West Eugene, and doing activities like this, all those things, you know, help us try to get a better idea of what's actually happening.
And I just, sorry for hijacking this, I don't mean to do that, but we just had a debrief of that public safety forum that we held. And I think in partnership with the auditor's office, we're looking to try and do that twice a year now. And have invited that group to be a heavy participant in a national night out, because part of bringing people together at PK Park is making sure we bring everybody together at PK Park, and that's, I think, another great outreach opportunity for Human Rights Commission or the Human Rights and Neighborhood Involvement to be there as well and see us all working together. So, sorry, Silver.
No, just a question. With the action that took place yesterday, what happened with swastikas and all the other stuff downtown? How does the police department get involved in that situation? Is it something that they're monitoring Is it something that they can respond to?
So in this particular case is a great example of that. So in this particular case, those swastikas were noticed by one of our staff members. Actually, a CSO saw that in the normal course of their duties and took it upon themselves to start reporting those and then looking in and around that area and found more and more and more in that kind of, that Whitaker area, that 7th and Monroe and 8th and Van Buren area was kind of the area, Monroe Park was kind of the area that happened. So it was self-discovered, which is good, number one. And so what we do is two things. Number one is we immediately partner with Public Works to get it covered up ASAP. That's an important piece of this, is to make sure that it doesn't exist too long and continue to spread and be communicative any longer than it needs to be. And then secondarily, we had officers in each instance of the swastika or where it was. We created a case for that specific one, and Special Investigative Unit has a detective assigned specifically to investigate these the best we can. Now, having said that, oftentimes there's no suspect information, no video, no evidence, but we at least track down what leads we can, neighborhood canvases, who saw what, those types of things, and try and track down those leads. So those are actively being investigated as hate crimes, or at least in my mind, the intent was to be criminal with your hate speech, and so we're following up on those.
And while those cases can be reported in multiple ways, so we also received some reports at HRNI, including like later in the day one with a picture of a suspect. So that was forwarded to APG.
Yeah, saw that. While historically the swastika is anti-Jewish, these were also in areas where the immigrants are welcome here were covered up. So it leads me to believe that there is some association with that.
Sure.
Yeah, in this report we have a note that swastikas have been used in several situations, not just to attack the Jewish community, but they have been used as a symbol of white nationalism in some cases.
Good. Anything else? Thank you, Fabio. We appreciate your time.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Okay, so our next item on the agenda is the election of our new chair and vice chair. And so Jeremy's going to hand out some pieces of paper that we do need to keep track. We won't acknowledge how everybody voted, just give you the tally. But for record keeping, if somebody in the public ever wanted to know how we voted, that there would be a record of it. So it is sort of a hybrid of secret voting, but not secret. So,
What are the new guys' names?
So that's what we're going to do next, is that we are going to open up for nominations for chair and vice chair. My term after 3 years is up by our bylaws, and can't be elected to another one without a change in those. So with that, I will ask for nominations for chair and vice chair. Well, go ahead.
I would like to nominate Bill Whalen for chair position for next year, understanding that the bylaws have a limitation. But it's our limitation, and we can undo it if we want. Not undo it, but waive it for a year if we want to. My reasoning is that I think Bill's been an excellent chair. I don't think this is a good time to change. I'd like to see the continuity of one more year of having Bill as chair. And, well, that's my motion. That's what I would like to move, is that we permit Bill to be nominated for one more year of chairmanship.
Second that.
Okay, we have a first and second.
Do we have to, it's a governance, do we have to amend, like, we can amend that?
So Jeremy's going to tell you there's two different ways to do this.
Yeah, okay.
Helen.
Take it away. So one is, of course, that you could amend the bylaws to go to 4 years, but the commission did decide on the 3-year term for various reasons. The second is I did talk with the city attorney and was given a motion here that would allow you to make this exception this time if you chose to do so, anticipating that this might be a likely outcome.
Waive it.
What's that?
Waive it for 1 year.
Yeah, so this is, the motion is notwithstanding Article 4, Paragraph 3 of Police Commission Organization and Bylaws, I move to appoint Bill Whalen for a 1-year term as Chair of the Police Commission beginning January 1st, July 1st, 2019.
So this was a process that was already discussed before we came to the table today?
What was the
He said
process?
he anticipated
Oh.
I
the
anticipated-
possibility, so he
Because
checked
staff
into
person
it, so he would
Okay.
have the.
Yeah, I just don't want to feel like it was just, like, where was I?
So, well,
I wasn't in the room.
No,
Backdoor
no,
dealings.
and so, well, and before anything, so my feelings is that you should have a new chairperson. I just want to put that on the table. I think that in any organization, especially a public commission, there should be limits to how long one leadership group runs the group. So I just want to make that clear that it would be, I would rather see you do something, but I do understand that because Scott, who was the natural
Yeah.
person, happened to move halfway across the country just so he didn't have to be the chair.
Does that mean you're moving?
Which is just wrong.
Yeah, very wrong.
But I do want you, I think this is something that you really, as a commission, need to think about and really be okay with it. I would entertain that if that's really what the whole commission wanted to do, with the knowledge that somebody else would be in this seat to do this again. With saying that, I will also say that if you rather pick a new chairman and vice chairman, I would be happy to attend all the agenda setting and help them with the process going forward for the next year. So I'm offering that option to you so that it doesn't have to be this.
Knowing that it cannot be me, would any of you be willing to serve in a chair or a vice chair?
Well, before we move there, I'd like to make a friendly amendment, if I could, that we wait a month before we make the decision to allow for you to do it for a year, and table we can have the discussion, but then table the vote until next month, at which point some of us would have a little bit more time to think about leadership opportunities.
I think,
So point of order, so since he asked for a friendly amendment.
There's no actual motion on the table.
he moved to.
He moved to
Yeah.
allow us to change the bylaws. So there is a motion and a
Not
second.
to change it, but to offer it,
Right.
yeah.
So there is a motion and a second. So, so you have to, willing to accept his friendly motion.
Or deny it.
Or you could say you don't want to, and then he could ask for a second, and then it can be voted on. If I remember my Roberts rules.
Good
correctly.
job.
Yeah, that's very good.
You're better than I
Yeah.
You can say anything right now and I believe it.
So your option is to say yes, that you can have a friendly amendment. If you say no, he can look for a second, or his motion just dies if he doesn't get a second.
Didn't anticipate this. I think it'd be okay
Okay?
to amend it that way.
Okay, so now we're just back in the discussion process, so Sean,
Right.
go ahead.
I have, actually, one of my questions was your question is, does anybody really want to be chair? Because I would be willing to serve as chair or vice chair with all of your
You beat me
support.
to it. I was about to nominate you.
Oh, wow. Second question was, can you serve as vice chair without breaking the bylaws? And the third question is, I'm kind of uncomfortable making any final decisions when there's half of us here and you're not going to be here next time.
And two other people next week, yeah,
So-
next month.
I like the tabling it. Yeah.
I wouldn't necessarily be uncomfortable making the decision because the new people are going to have no clue about
Right.
the
Yeah.
That's fair.
current board, but,
Yeah.
Well,
Jennifer's not here.
I mean, I would also consider a vice chair position, but there's some questions that I have, and they're not able to be answered at this point, so, yeah.
You could ask him now.
No, I mean, it's just my work is kind of, it takes a lot of my time. So some of those things, what are some of the requirements, time-wise and everything else. But I think it's natural that there's a number of us that would want to maybe step in and start
Well,
filling in that position.
So let me just throw this out there based on what I heard. So there's a way to get a win-win for all of it. Like Sean is willing to serve as chair, Bill is willing to serve as vice chair, so we have the continuity, and he can be there to help onboard Sean.
Okay. So, any other discussion on this one motion? Because then we can go back and start again with nominations and everything else. Okay, so the motion on the floor is to allow, to change or waive the requirement that 3 years is our term for me, to allow me to then be voted on as the chairperson. With a friendly amendment, though, that says that we are going to wait till next month to actually vote on our officers of this. So does everybody understand what that means? So that it doesn't mean that I am the chairperson, but it does give me you guys the option to vote me in, but we're not going to vote on it until next month.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you need another discussion point there, Joe? Any other question you want to ask about that?
I'm
convinced by Steve.
I wanted to make one more friendly amendment, that we have the option to wait till next month to vote on this. Not necessarily that we will wait to vote next month.
Is that different than?
Well, no, he asked for it to wait.
We will wait.
So Silver said he wants to wait till next month to vote on this. So, and so now Joel's asking us to say that we can wait, so that means that you can decide to vote on this.
Where's Scott?
So I guess I will give you my recommendation on how to vote. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this, but I'm good.
What are we going to do, though? You ask.
Well, I would say that you vote this motion down and start again. And then have a little bit more discussion about, do people want to be in these positions? And then decide that, is that a better way to go? And then maybe delay the vote a month if that's what you feel like people want to have more knowledge. But
Yes.
that would be what I think, because I think we got off a little quick on the gun.
You can also withdraw your motion.
You can withdraw your motion if you'd like to, and then we don't have to vote on it. We don't have to vote it down. Or you can.
So, what would, I'm a little confused about what we would be doing if we did that.
So what
Just starting all over.
So what we go back to is
Yes.
nominations.
Just a
And
discussion.
so then if somebody wanted to nominate somebody for the chair and the vice chair, because
They could do the
I
chair.
can only not be the chair for another, without a motion to change or waive the bylaw.
Do you have an idea who you want to put forward?
Yeah.
Who willing to put
So,
forward?
or if you want to wait a month to give some other people at the table that are thinking about one of these two positions up here to do that. So, but this would at
Just
least put us back.
temporarily sitting here.
This would just, but this would put us back onto that open plane again, if we didn't have that motion.
Well, and Jennifer's not here.
Jennifer's not.
True.
And you'd have to do it next, because there's no July. August meeting.
Yeah, I'll withdraw it.
So you withdraw your motion?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so now we're back to nominations.
Robert's rules.
So,
Yes, sir.
I would nominate Sean as chair and Bill as vice chair.
Okay, so we have one set. So does anybody else have any other nominations?
Going once.
That's it.
Okay, so with.
I would question if Joel would want to be the person who steps into the vice chair position.
You got plenty of time, don't you, Joe?
Thank you. I appreciate it, but
One is enough.
yeah, it's gonna be busy next year. So I respectfully decline.
Okay. And Silver, I'm gonna ask you, would you like to be the vice chair?
Again, I would just need to know, I mean, I don't make any commitments without any kind of real understanding of what my commitment's gonna be. I've been here consistently for years, because I made a commitment to be here. So I want to make sure that my commitment would be something that I could hold to. So just with the understanding of what it would be, I would be willing to step into the vice chair position.
So basically, you have your meeting here. There is 1 to 2 agenda setting meetings throughout the month that are usually an hour and a half, maybe long, depending on what we have to do. There could be other meetings that you might need to attend. They're not mandatory, but sometimes the chief would like us, the chair or the vice chair, to attend a meeting or to sit through an interview process, or which, if your schedule doesn't allow you to, he's understanding. But there are those things that he asked that the chair and vice chair attend. Some other things that some other community involved where they'd like to have representation from us. And usually it falls to the chair or the vice chair. So.
And the annual meeting with the council.
And then the annual meeting with the council that you would present, like next Wednesday is being presented, the work plan, and then we have an updated work plan every year.
I'm not speaking to your leadership in any way and saying that you should be stepping down. And I just think it is true that we should have some kind of churn.
100%.
And do you want to be that person, Bill?
I'd be willing to serve as chair if you were vice chair.
Okay.
So it's, a different candidacy.
So we'll take you as you nominated yourself as chair, Will, and me as vice chair.
May I also mention, just for full disclosure, there are unanticipated questions that come up for the chair, vice chair, as to sometimes people drop from the schedule. And we have to run to fill that void quickly. So just so you know, there is some stuff that is kind of ad hoc, and
so you want to put your
No, I don't want to.
I'll put your name to that. I was going to nominate you, Silver. Okay.
It's never less than you think.
Exactly.
I know.
That's what it's saying. That's what it's saying.
You'd probably be fine.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be willing to run for vice chair.
Then I will nominate you myself for vice chair. Okay.
Bill, do you accept the vice chair nomination?
I will accept the vice chair. Okay. But like I said, I will also, I'm willing to come and help.
Great.
Do the process if the 2 new people get voted. Okay? So with that, if everybody would fill out their ballot, the chair, Sean and Will, and for vice chair is Silver and Bill.
you can borrow my pen. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I
get a vote?
I didn't give you a vote. There you go.
I don't get a vote.
Yeah, you don't get it. You don't get it.
I either lost my sheet or...
Are we giving these to somebody?
I do. I've
got
got
another
2
one?
more.
Often where the buck
There's the last 2.
Oh, I mean, I don't
What's that?
He
Oh,
has
this is yours.
one.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, here then, why don't I take that spare?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean.
For sure.
Pleasure doing business with you. You were like out of the no interest.
Oh, no.
Oh, thanks for Jessica.
I'm glad.
Thank you, sir.
And by the way, I like Dr.
Then our,
Are you a Giants fan?
Dodger fan.
tell
There you go.
us.
There you go.
Let us know.
I was wearing what I wore to work because it was hot. And I didn't get home.
Is that all of them? Okay. So I'm gonna count these out loud.
Dramatic.
No,
Just want me to
just tell him. And then while he's telling, we're gonna move on. So I'm gonna skip the outreach tonight. We're running late, and we want to make sure that We recognize our aging out, our aging out commissioner. So I'll turn it over to the chief.
Thank you very much, Bill. You look pretty good for aging out. No, Steve, we just have a little recognition for you for your time here on the commission. I will tell you that in the short time we've had a chance to work together, I appreciate your thoughtful insights and your work on the CRB. And being here, I think, has proven valuable just in the sense of a better understanding of the entire system that we're trying to put together here in Eugene. And so with that, I want to just read what this says. And you get this nifty certificate, but maybe more importantly, you can't get to them, but you have some the Eugene
Some hardware.
the Eugene challenge
yeah.
coins, which are tough to get your hands on from time to time. So that's good. That's neat that we do this way. Mr. McIntyre, your work through the Eugene Police Commission has served the community honorably during the past 5 years. You provided valuable insight on countless policy reviews and subject matter, including taser deployment, illegal camping, homelessness, camera usage, code of conduct, and a myriad of other topics. Your additional efforts as liaison provided the commission with valuable insight into the efforts of the Civilian Review Board. Your leadership and participation has been a great asset and will be missed. Because of your great work that you have accomplished through the Police Commission and for the Eugene Police Department, you are hereby awarded with the Eugene Police Department Certificate of Appreciation. So, congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Very good. Thank you.
See if that matches up to the CRB, whatever they give.
They have a bigger budget than I do.
So,
Well, thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
are you ready to give the,
Yeah, do we want the total tally or just the who chair
just
and vice chair?
who wins?
Who's chair?
Okay, so Sean is chair.
Congratulations, Sean.
Mr. Schumke. And Bill Whalen is your vice chair.
Oh, good job. Congratulations.
So, well, thank you, everyone. We will go to commissioners' comments. Silver, can we start with you?
Sure. My questions earlier about the number of calls that are coming in versus the response time and I don't want to be mistaken, I know that there are bad guys out there. I just want to know that when we have these discussions in the community, and I've heard a lot from people saying, well, why is it that there's no responses for a certain number of things? And I like to know the data. I'd like to know what it is that's not being responded to. And I like to know that there's not, crimes that are not being tended to, that they're, when they're needed to be responded to, that they're responded to. So, I know there are bad guys out there, and I know that we need to make sure that they're kept in check, and I appreciate that. So I didn't mean anything by that. I like to think about, what is actually not being responded to. And with this conversation that we're going to be having, I want to make sure that I'm clear so that I have answers, because I don't have answers, and I get asked questions. So that would be my only comment.
Thank you. Terry?
I also really appreciate the data and being able to see, because I think it tells a good story. And also, a lot of the past data we weren't fully staffed during those, and so maybe those response times, those things will change. And the reorganization that Deputy Chief is doing also, a lot of this, I think we're on a good trend. So I'd like to see next year's report, and then we'll see what those differences show. I think that would be gratifying to see the change.
Apologies for being late today. This legislative session's closing off with a bang and pulled all sorts of different directions. But I also wanted to let you all know that last Human Rights Commission, I introduced a resolution condemning white nationalism and white supremacy here in the city of Eugene, which we approved unanimously. Councilor Semple is our liaison to City Council, so our hope is that she will be introducing it hopefully before the end of this month. But I am remiss that I wish I would have talked to Jeremy and presented it to you all, so you got a chance to take a look at it and provide some input as well. But happy to chat with anyone after the meeting if you have more questions about the resolution. We worked on it in close collaboration with the Western State Center, who specializes in this type of work, and they drafted Portland's version, which they passed a month or two ago. So just wanted to let you all know that that was something the Human Rights Commission was up to, and hopefully City Council passes it.
You send it around electronically?
Yeah, I can send it to y'all. And last quick point on that, not only a resolution, but there's also some tangible steps that we're hoping City Council and, of course, the city manager can take. One of it includes an ask for the mayor to establish some sort of task force to take a look, whether it be a 6 to 12 month period, at some other concrete steps the city can take in order to address all of these issues, whether from Harlow to the recent massive increase in the swastikas we just had this week. So, thank you.
Yeah, would you get that to
Yes,
Jeremy
I'll
so
send
that
it
you could get out on our weekly?
Yeah,
That'd be great
I'll
to
send it
see.
to Jeremy.
Thank you. Sean?
Thank you guys for voting for me. I'm a little bit scared, and it's only mitigated by the fact that I know I'll be working with such a great group of people. Well, minus you, Steve. Appoint me and then...
I think you're a good person, Steve.
Yeah, nominate me and then I see how it is.
I just say I really appreciate the reporting tonight and the discussion around it, and I appreciate what this commission does, and I'm grateful for my time that I've served on the commission. So I know it's all in good hands, but I really appreciate the experience. It actually was quite a great learning opportunity for me, and I wish more people would be willing to step up and serve, because you see things that you wouldn't otherwise see as just a community member. So thank you all for the work you do.
I thought they were terrific reports tonight. I'm excited about the new deputy chief. I think that position is important and essential, I think. And it struck me that an heroic amount of work went into our packet tonight. So I want to thank Jeremy for doing that.
Writing it all.
Although we're not meeting our sustainability goals very well. But it is good work.
In that case, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Chief, anything?
No, sir.
Alan?
I just wanted to hand out 2 thank yous. Thank you, Bill, for being the chair. I've only been here a short while on the commission, but you did an excellent job. And thank you very much for that work.
Yeah,
and,
definitely.
And Steve, thank you for your work on the CRB and on this commission. It's well recognized within the city of the work that you did and the work that you put in, hours that you put in doing it. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me serve.
Yeah.
So I want to thank you, Steve. I think that it was great having you as part of the commission. You brought some good policy issues that we addressed, and I think that helped the department. And I appreciate all the information you always brought. You always came well prepared to the meetings, and that was just great. So thank you for all you do. Thanks for everything. Thanks everyone for showing up tonight, and we will look forward to New Year. Thanks. Ready to go?
That's a good point.